Okay, this is a testing of my narration. I decided I'm doing narrating. I can't animate, and no one else is gonna read my story. So yeah, yep. Let's get started. I am reading. Give me a second. Okay, scratch that. We are choosing a different story. The Church AU of Camp Camp. Here's a summary. Max had been sent to a church since he was seen unholy. He soon meets Nikki and Neil, who hasn't been tricked by the lies they told here. The once happy children now husk of their former selves. Max and his friends had tried to find their way out the church without causing pain to themselves and others. Okay then, this is chapter 1 of a few. No advice. I suck at narrating, and there could be some background noises because my sister won't shut up. So, yeah. Let's get started. Woo! Also, I'm sorry for the shuffling noises. I can't help that because, I don't have an actual mic. Hopefully that might change. Probably not, but who knows. And, yeah. What was the put here again? Okay, yeah, sorry. A car pulled into the driveway of a building that looked beat up and worn down. In front waited two people wearing black clothes. The woman was wearing something over her head, hiding her hair, and the man was wearing a black cape on his head. The boy looked at his parents, who were waiting for him. "See you guys soon," he said, grabbing his bags and walking out the car. The boy looked into the eyes of the two that looked at him, their eyes devoted of life. He looked at his parents, but they had driven off, without saying goodbye. "Eyes front," the man said sternly. The boy sighed and looked at them. "Say your name," he said. "Max." "Last name?" "Rather not say." The male looked at the female, and she nodded. "Good. Now hand me your bags." Max grabbed his bag and gave it to him. "Well-mannered, I see. Good. Follow us." Max walked inside the gates, as the female walked in front, but stopped to wait for the male. He was locking the gates with a tiny silver key. The three walked into the building that was just as silent as outside. "Am I the only one? Do not speak without permission." Max quickly shut up his mouth and kept walking behind them. The male led him to a room and seemed neat and well made, inside with a single bed, a dresser, and a small table that had a small lamp. The man placed a bag on the bed and opened it. "Hey, don't look through. The female smacked his face. "Do not speak without permission," she yelled, her voice harsh and full of rage. Max held his cheek, feeling it sting and turn red. The male took out only two things, a bunch of comics and a phone. "You won't be needing these," he said, walking out with them in hand. "Your uniform is in the dresser. Once dressed, come to the main hall," the woman said, closing the door. The black-haired boy rubbed his cheek that was still burning. He walked over to the brown dresser and opened it. Laid before him was multiple uniforms, all black. He took one and saw it was a robe, but with shorts to match. Max took off his shirt and slid the robe on, as it covered half his body. He pulled his arm through the sleeves, feeling the material that was made for it. Very silky. He looked into the hallways before walking out into it. Max took a good look around to get a feel for the area. It was dark. Lingering in the hallways were offerings of some sort. Max walked towards the door, through a door to be greeted with a stand and multiple seats. In the seats sat many kids, each one wearing the robes, but the females wore white ones. None moved their heads when the door opened, not a single one. At the stand stood a man and a woman from before, but a new face was there, an older male, who stood on the stand. That man had white on. He had a hat on his head with a cross on it that was black. He looked stern and serious. "Welcome, child. Take a step forward." Max looked at everyone in the room. None looked up. He took a few steps before feeling scared all of a sudden. Stopped at the stairs and looked at the man. "What is your name?" "Max." he said, his voice cracking. Welcome, Max. I am Father Cameron. Why? The woman took a step forward to smack his face, but the older man stopped her. Sister Gwen, we mustn't give the impression to the newcomer. She stopped and glared him down before looking away. Brother David, will you assign his seat? The male nodded and looked at Max. Follow me. Max followed him towards the fifth row. He pointed at a seat between a male and female. Max sat down between them. They didn't move. David walked back to the front and stood next to Gwen. My children, open your books to our last chapter we stopped at. All the children took out a book and opened it. Max saw a book in front of him and grabbed it. He flipped through it, looking at the pages, seeing as there was a lot. The girl beside him looked and saw him getting confused. 1 Kings, chapter 9, she said, whispering in his ear. Max looked at her and flipped to the chapter. Thank you. Max! Eyes front and center, Gwen yelled, keeping her eyes on him. The female flinched at the screaming, looking back at her book. The boy looked into his book. Max was getting bored of this. The monotone sound of Cameron's voice made him want to sleep. Taking his eyes off the book, he looked up and saw the two who greeted him were sitting at a desk reading out the book, listening to the man, both looking dead. Max looked at the female who helped him. She had silver tree hair and rosebud skin. Max tapped her shoulder, knocking her out of her mind. She looked over, seemingly worried. Hi, I'm Max, but you already know that. What's... The boy stopped when Cameron stopped talking. Is there something you'd like to tell us, Max? He said patiently. No, sir, he said, looking back at his book. Cameron went on reading. The girl leaned into his ear. My name's Nikki, she said, looking back at her book. The man closed his book. The sun has taken its place into the sky. We shall make our way to the cafeteria. Follow, he said, walking off the stand and walking towards the door with David and Gwen following behind. The newcomer sat at a table with Nikki and the ones on his row. David passed out trays of soup, bread, and mashed potatoes with gravy and a cup of apple juice. Max looked at his tray, feeling how warm it was and how fresh it looked. He reached for the bread, but his hand was slapped. Wait for Father Cameron, you ungrateful child, Gwen yelled. She and David walked to the table where Cameron sat in the middle. They sat beside them. Max rubbed his hand, and he looked at Nikki as she looked down on her food. Everyone was looking at their food. He could tell they were hungry. The older man nodded, and everyone started to eat. Max took a bite out of his bread, tasting the warm, buttery wheat. He hummed happily as he ate. The boy looked at Nikki as she ate her soup, smiling slightly. Max smiled and ate the bread whole. David led the boys to their rooms, which were all in one area. Doors will be locked at 12. Doors will be unlocked at 6. Between now and then, go to the bathroom. If you get locked out, go to the guest rooms and you'll be let out in the morning. Stay away from the girls' rooms. If we see you in that area, you will be punished greatly. Good night, children, David said, walking away. Max and the other boys, walked into their rooms to either get something to eat, to just sleep, or study on their work. Max closed his door and took out some things out his bag, placing them throughout the room, one being a teddy bear that he placed on the bed. He sat down on his bed and relaxed finally. He quickly jolted up from nature's urge. He went out of his room and he met the boy he sat beside along with Nikki. Max walked forward beside the boy. The other boy looked at him. You're new, right? Max, is it? The black-haired boy looked over. Yeah, well, I'm Neil, and I think it's brave of you to get on Gwen's nerves. Everybody here is afraid of her. Max shrugged. Gotta stand for what I believe. We don't do that here. We lose our joy. Then we go home. What? Yep, haven't you noticed everyone here being silent? Yeah, I just thought it was for the fact those people are here. We're there. That and the fact Gwen and Patrol use them. Enough that they don't talk. Max froze in his mind. I'm glad I know how to stay silent, or else I would be deader than dead. The two boys ended in front of the bathrooms. I'm here to take a shower. You? Bathroom. Left door, he said, walking in with Max following behind. Max got out, feeling refreshed. He made his way back to his room when he crossed paths with someone he didn't see in the room. It was a girl with Jafar hair. She didn't look up, she just looked down. Hi, Max said before she lifted her head, showing a huge gash on her cheek. It was bleeding badly. She started to cry and run away. Max froze in place and watched her run. He didn't feel safe anymore. He wanted to go home. No matter how bad home was, it was better than here. The boy walked into his room, where he grabbed the book and started to read out, hoping it will help him escape reality. A bell rung, and a click was heard. Max was so lost in his book, he was scared by the sound. He got up and tried the door. It was locked. Max placed his book down and took his robe off, yawning. He placed it on the desk, not bothering to fold it neatly. He sat on his bed before laying down and closing his eyes.